Hey, this is Coach Chris with the Strong by Design podcast show, and I'm really super excited about today's topic. We are talking about carbs, public enemy number one, or are they? Today I am sitting across Tonya from Tonya Fines. She is a holistic health practitioner and nutrition specialist, and really what that means is she knows a lot more than most people when it comes to your health and your nutritional health. And so, welcome, Tonya.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, it's great to have you here. So I want to dive right in. We have obviously a list of topics that we want to go over today, we want to cover. And number one, just a little bit of background really quickly. Like, if you could describe yourself in like 4 or 5 sentences, how would you do that?
Well, I've been in this industry my whole life. Started out as a high school teacher, then started out my own company in Canada, moved overseas to New Zealand for a while, and now I'm here in Florida. And this is all I've done is just worked in this industry of fitness, wellness, nutrition, and holistic health and all of that.
Yeah. Well, then, obviously you're the perfect person to have. So, obviously carbs have gotten, there's no shortage of information on carbs, carbohydrates. And I think there's still, even to this day, for most people or the average person, a lot of confusion when it comes to healthy carbs. Should I avoid them at all altogether? Right. Simple versus complex, morning, noon, or night. Like, what's the story? So, number one is, I guess, what would you say if someone asked you, and I'm sure you've gotten this question a lot, are carbs bad for me, or are they really, should I not eat them? Like, what would be your answer?
My answer would be no. They're not bad for you. But that doesn't, there's a lot more to it. But bottom line is they're not bad for you, because even too much of a really good thing can be not that great for you. It's just the information that we have, and how much are you eating, what carbs are you eating. So there's a lot that goes into that answer, but ultimately no, they're not bad for you. We do need them in our diet.
Right. Yeah, because what happens if people start to make carbs, which is a huge umbrella term, the bad guy, then all of a sudden you're omitting like fruits and certain vegetables and certain
fiber,
healthy fiber choices. So give us maybe a quick list. What if you were to name 5 really good carbs that most people, obviously they might have their own individual needs or issues there, but the average person, what would be 5 carb choices?
Okay, so like sweet potatoes. They taste great. They're sweet, but they are a complex carb. So it's a slow release sugar. It's a great carb, especially if you're a very active person. Okay, your whole grains, oats. That has the fiber, that also has some really good oils in it that we need. Our brain needs these things. Whole grain choices as far as wraps and breads. Like you want things like nuts and seeds, and when you look at a slice of bread, if it looks rough, that's a great carb choice. Because there's a lot of fiber. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Like how about these sprouted bread options that have become increasingly popular for good reason, because there's a lot more nutritional value to them.
There's a lot more value, and it brings a lot of other things. Carbs aren't just about sugar. There's a lot going on in a carb that our body does need. Okay?
Right. What about a few vegetables?
Well, you're always great to go with green. When something's dark and green, it's got a lot of fiber. It does have carbs, okay? And fruits and vegetables do have sugar. You can't avoid it. It's a sugar, but it's not like eating white table sugar, right?
No, much different.
Much different,
yeah. Because we're a big believer in my household. I have a couple of young children, and I know you have some children of your own, and I'm sure fruits were kind of like commonplace in their diet. And I always feel good, making the kids a smoothie with, load it with spinach, and then put in your banana, put in your strawberries, your blueberries, and all that stuff. And sure, it's got a lot of carbohydrates, but I much rather than having that than a fruit roll up or something like So why do we really need carbohydrates? That might sound like an easy, silly question, but why?
Not at all. Well, the short answer is that we need them for energy. It's the quickest, fastest source of fuel that our body goes to when it needs energy to do things, to be active, to move.
Right.
It doesn't mean that your body can't use other things for energy, but it's the primary source. It's the first place it's going to go to draw energy, to get you through something, to help you go about your day. That's the short, simple answer.
Right. So, you know, obviously for your super active people, you know, it just becomes increasingly important that they have like those go-to carbs
they need
in
the
their
fuel. Like
diet.
you think of a marathon runner, right? If a marathon runner doesn't have fuel to run, they're not going to be able to run very far. So the whole point of, well, with anything with your nutrition is putting in what you need to do what it is you're going to be doing. Right?
Yeah. And that it seems like the first place that people try cutting when they want to lose weight, they immediately start looking at what their carbohydrate intake is.
Right.
And in some cases, probably in a lot of cases, it's smart. That is the first place that I would recommend most people look, because rather than cutting fats. Well, and that's a topic for another day maybe. But really they should, and it really comes down to the types of carbohydrates though, that the processed artificial carbs, the boxed items, the stuff that can sit on a shelf for 3 months or a year without going bad. Those are the ones that should be removed.
Right. It's not so much that carbs themselves are an evil thing. It's which ones are you choosing. And it's the same with, I mean, we can take it, even talk about protein sources and fat sources. So, but we're talking about carbs today. So carbs in and of themselves are not evil or bad, but there are definitely smarter, wiser, better, healthier options to choose from. And it's easy to consume a lot of carbs in the day because, I mean, let's face it, people are busy today. Not a lot of families have that luxury of sitting down and having a 1 hour meal every single evening. So it is about convenience, it's about efficiency, it's about, you know, as a busy mom, you want to get the kids fed and then keep on going. So it can become very easy to fall into that trap of picking quick, highly processed fast things because there's no preparation involved. But what we can do is take a little time outside of that at the end of the day on a Sunday to just do a little bit of prep so that there's healthier, smarter choices there that, you know, my kids are older now. They can just grab stuff and go.
And that's, yes, I mean, that's usually like my number one thing when someone has asked me in the past about, you know, weight loss. Like what's, you know, 3 quick things I can do, or what a number one is, just prepare a little bit for yourself. Like you said, on a Sunday or on a particular day of the week where you can do some bulk cooking or bulk snack making, you know, whatever it is, you know, have your nuts and put some stuff together that's in a container that's just ready to go, because ultimately your healthy fats become a great replacement for some of these go-to quick carb fixes. You know, if you're having your almonds or your cashews or some of these other things, that fall into that category, seeds and things like that, that'll satisfy your hunger.
That's right.
Even better.
Absolutely.
And still provide energy and stuff.
Absolutely.
Long term. So, I'm looking at this one question here that you have about like daily, your daily intake, nutritional intake. What kind of advice there can you give?
Well, my advice would be, I mean, it's different for everybody. There isn't a one-stop shop that fits everybody, not a one-size-fits-all. So you have to take into account, you know, what does your day look like? Are you largely going to sedentary job, sitting at a desk, not doing much? Are you a very active person? You know, all of that has to be considered. So really, you need to consume. I like to track my food. I got in the habit of doing that when I was competing, and what was very important, but I just found it a good habit to get into, just to be able to monitor and see, you know, what I was putting in and how much. Definitely when I was in those competing days, I was able to consume higher volume of carbs because I was burning it off all the time. Now once I get out of that intensity, obviously I backed off of that. I still eat carbs, but I'm not eating, you know, hundreds of grams of them a day because it'll sit there. So as far as what's recommended, it is going to depend on the person. It's going to depend on their lifestyle, their activity level. And obviously some choices are going to fill them better with others. And if we combine, you know, a food or a meal that has a really great balance of carbs, proteins, and fats, that person's going to get fed with a healthy option.
Right.
They're going to be able to sustain, like even through that satiety. It's going to
Right.
hold them longer throughout the day. So
Right.
that need to snack and grab something fast isn't there, because
Right.
the minute you start to get hungry, your body is going to want to get something quick.
Right.
It knows it needs food.
Right.
Right.
The loading of carb, like throughout the day, because I mean, are you the type of person that would say to the average person, go a little bit more carb heavy, maybe early, and maybe around activity?
Yep.
Before, certainly after,
Right.
Immediately after activity to replenish.
Absolutely.
And then kind of dial back carbohydrate intake later in the day.
In the evening, which can be tricky because a lot of us in the evening, the day's over.
Right.
And we're sitting there maybe taking some time out, reading the kids' stories, watch TV, and we start to snack. So what are the quick snack choices, right?
But if the snacks are decent.
Exactly.
Even if they have carbs, and when I say decent, I guess I mean good for you stuff. Like maybe it's an apple with like peanut butter or something, right? Don't be like, that's okay to have that. Because I think people run from carbs prior to going to bed. Like really, like, oh, I really shouldn't do this right now.
That's right.
But I've also talked with people who compete and who are really into their physique.
Yes.
And they're like, carbs are okay prior to bed as long as they're good ones, because they do help your body relax.
Yes.
And they do help those hormones kick in while you're digesting. And so, I mean, think of that post-turkey. Now, I'm not saying go out and eat like it's Thanksgiving.
Right.
But how tired and lethargic kind of everybody gets after a big meal.
Exactly.
To some extent, you can go for that a little bit late in the day if you're hungry. Don't go to bed starving. In other words, because I would definitely say do not do that.
Right.
Put some nutrition in your body. Just it shouldn't be a donut.
Well, no, but this is what exactly. We're talking the difference of a bag of chips versus, you said a piece of fruit and some peanut butter, even some peanut butter on a whole grain, multigrain, nutty seedy slice of bread.
Right.
There's a huge difference in the value of nutrition that's being consumed. Yes, it's at the end of the day, but again, the value of what you're consuming makes a huge difference as to how that's going to be burned, or if it's just going to sit and get stored as body fat, right?
Right, yeah. Because our bodies don't necessarily always know. It's really kind of like, what's your caloric intake for the day really is a good way to look at it, right? And if wow, I've eaten a lot today, well then maybe try to, maybe have a glass of water or something and try to avoid too much overeating over the course of the day. But don't go to bed. I mean, if you've been really good all day long, and you're like, ooh, I really, I'm on a diet. I really trying not to. I don't want to gain weight. I'm trying to lose weight, but I'm hungry. Well, allow yourself something to eat. If you're only at 1,200 calories for the day and it's 9 o'clock at night, have another 200-300 calories. It's okay.
Right, because as long as we continue to eat, because eating keeps our metabolism going, it keeps us fueled. It kind of primes that pump and that machine to keep running.
Right.
So going to bed or previous to bed being starving, hungry, no, you
not
have
do
something. It's not going to do anything for you, and you're just going to be grumpy.
Yeah. No, right.
You're going to go to bed not feeling good. So.
But that's where having a regular meal plan really helps most people, as hard as it can be. But if you start to regulate when your body's getting food, you stabilize things. You function better. Your energy levels more consistent.
Less of this.
Yeah, less of the highs and the lows. Yeah, so this is what we're really going after.
And once you can get into a routine, I mean, just habitually, because we're creatures of habit. So the hardest thing about starting something new or changing things up is just initiating that and keeping it going. But most of us know what our day looks like. Like if we've been in a career or a job for a long enough time, we have an idea of what our day is like, extracurricular activities, family obligations. So we have a pretty good idea. It can change, absolutely. But looking at a week, it isn't really difficult. This is what I would always do with clients. I would have them give me 1 week. What is your schedule like? And then we could look at it and point out, okay, here are 1 or 2 pockets of time that you can actually do some prep. Not a huge big prep, but some prep, so that on that Friday afternoon when you're running between soccer and baseball and the PTA, you're not going to the drive-through to try to keep everybody happy and fed and from losing their mind. Instead, you've got better choices on hand that you can take and go with you.
Right.
That is a much better option.
Yeah.
So it's just about getting into that habit.
Yeah.
Right.
What's nice is too, there's been a lot of healthier food options that have opened up in recent years to compete with some of these other fast food type places.
Exactly.
And that's been really nice. You know, places that, you know, essentially you could walk in and walk out of there with a really healthy, you know, $7 to $10 meal in, you know, 5, 6, 7 minutes,
Right.
which isn't a heck of a lot different than a fast food restaurant.
That's right.
And, you know, but even at some of the fast food places, they at least are starting to come out with healthier choices
Right, you
too
can get
for
salads
people.
now and,
Yeah.
and wraps, things
Right.
like that.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit lower carbohydrate and less of the unhealthy fried option,
Right.
which becomes like kind of the go-to.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about fats, those are
Yeah.
the bad fats.
Yeah,
that, you know,
and they
the
taste
deep
good. I mean,
and they do
you
taste
can't argue
good.
that.
Right,
They taste
right,
good.
right. It's hard not to mention fat sometimes because that's kind of the other side of, you know, if people are trying to lose weight, they don't immediately start thinking about protein intake.
No.
They think about carbohydrates and they
And
think
fats.
about fats
That's
in their
right.
diet. But fats, for the most part, you need them, and they are not the enemy.
Right.
And there are so many healthy fats out there, and the more healthy fat you eat, the easier it is to lose fat. And it's just worth kind of touching on that, I think. If somebody's really cutting, if somebody's really cutting carbohydrate intake, but they're not seeing that reflection in the scale or in the mirror, and they can be frustrated by that, what could be going on there?
Well, a couple things. My first question would be, are you moving? Like, are you moving your body? Are you doing something? Because
Right.
you can't deny, you can have a great diet, but if you're carrying a little extra weight and you want to lose it, but you're not doing anything, you're not moving your body, well, that would be my first thing. Are you moving?
Yeah.
No? Let's get you moving.
And
Okay?
every day.
And every day.
Yeah,
And it
move
doesn't
every
have
day,
to be
yeah.
a big, you don't have to start doing triathlons or
Right.
big, just do something half an hour every day.
Something
Just
that
do
gets your heart
something.
rate up,
Yeah,
gets everything working.
Yeah, just
moving,
get everything moving. So that would be my first thing.
Okay.
The other question or point that I would look at, especially if if it was a client, I would be looking at, well, I was big on like writing down to show me what you've been eating, because if the cutting of the carb was so extreme, I would be inclined to say, I think we need to add some. I think your body needs some. I think you're stalled. You hit a plateau.
Your body's going survival mode on
yeah,
you.
Yeah. So we need to actually give you some more food and give you some carbs. Get you moving. Take a look at how extreme that cut's been.
Yeah.
What are you not eating, and what do we need to include to get that metabolism moving again?
Right. Yeah, because people sometimes they just don't see. It's really hard to do that self-evaluation.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but if you're tracking it and you're not seeing the issue, someone else looks at it, especially an expert, and they can go, okay, I see patterns here, and I see where you're coming up short, and they can make those changes for you. Yeah. What carbs, if you were to list, what carbs won't make someone fat? I mean, I don't want to ask you for a top 10 list, but what comes to mind?
Well, again, it's the simple carbs versus complex. We're talking those sugar spikes versus ones that are slow release, like a sweet potato versus a white potato. A sweet potato is a complex carb, so it has a slow release of sugar.
Yes.
You don't get the spikes, okay? Now, if you eat a donut, you're going to get that burst of energy, that spike, and then you're going to drop, right?
Right. It's probably worth mentioning like high glycemic versus low glycemic at this point then, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and define that for people. Maybe they've heard that before and they don't really know what the heck that means.
Well, if something's got a low glycemic index, it's one of your slow release. It's going to have a little more, I like to use the term sustainability. It's going to carry you through a period of time without a spike in your sugar and then that drastic drop where you feel like you go from having all the energy in the world to having none.
The candy bar or donut effect.
The candy bar, the donut, the white bread, the white stuff.
Yeah, a lot of bad white
processed
foods.
stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas low glycemic, things like your complex, are
Just more sustainable.
Yeah, I'm
right?
getting tongue-tied here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Versus the other side of it where it's quick, it's short, there's no real value in terms of energy supply or, you know. Now, have I ever eaten a donut? Yes.
Right, no, right.
Have I had pizza? Yes.
Of course.
But I think what happens is we hear something like, you know, cutting carbs or reducing carbs is great for health, it's great for weight loss, and everybody jumps on board, or not everybody, but a lot of people will jump on board because their intentions are good. They want to do something good for themselves. They want to lose the weight, get into better shape. I think the intention is great, but without the information or the education and the knowledge, it's easy to get lost in all of it because there's so much information out there, and it can get very complicated, but it actually isn't all that complicated.
Yeah, they create these impossible goals.
Yes.
You know, even if they have clear goals, which is great. You know, if you're going to get somewhere, like most people, you know, when you're talking about carbs, you're going to talk about probably weight loss or diet, or so goal setting is obviously a huge part of that. But sometimes it's to an extreme where they won't allow themselves anything. You know, no cheats, or you know, one meal a week or something, and it's just it's a bit much. So I think it has to be realistic. It's like if you want to have a slice of pizza, or maybe even two, if it's not those huge ones, you know, then with a salad, that's okay if make that like your Tuesday night thing, or your Friday night thing, or whatever. And then if you want to have like a carb-heavy breakfast on Sunday, you know, then do it. You just got to make it up in other ways is all. You just have to make it up with how you're eating the rest of the day, and don't. I think sometimes too people go nuts where they have a cheat day, where they just eat 5,000 calories and they're just So I would try to avoid that, but mixing it in here and there. If 80% of the time or 85% of the time you're eating well, consistently well with your carbs, then don't be afraid of some of these, carbs. You want mashed potatoes or something, then have some mashed potatoes, and then have good portion control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's, like I said, it's easy to get lost in all of the information that's out there, but it just comes down to basic reality. Like what is it you wanting to achieve? Are you struggling with weight loss? Are you an athlete? Because that's a whole different thing. That's much more structured, much more disciplined, a different mindset altogether. But for most people, if they're struggling, 10 to 15 pounds, and they're wondering why it's not, we don't need to necessarily cut everything out. A lot of times people can be very hard on themselves.
Yeah.
I've been struggling, it's been 5 years, I can't lose this 10 pounds, I've joined a gym, I've done this, I've done that, I've cut carbs, I've increased, they've done a lot of what are good things. Mm-hmm. But it's just kind of like jumping from here to here to here, as opposed to, okay, let's just stop. Yeah. Let's take a breath. What does your day look like? What are you wanting to achieve? Okay. A lot of times it's very small tweaks.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
Right? It's small, simple tweaks that person can sustain and manage.
Yeah.
And feel really good.
That's just it too. Sustain and manage.
Right.
And for consistency.
Realistically.
Because people throw in the towel. I mean, let's say somebody gained, they have 20 to 25 pounds they want to lose. Right. I think a lot of people can identify with that, right?
Yeah.
But they give themselves 2 weeks just to start seeing parameters that are too strict. Yeah. And they're looking for measurables and they're not seeing it. Right. And they start throwing in the towel already.
Because there goes all the motivation.
Right.
So now I'll try the next trend.
Right.
Like that,
right. I'll try this next thing. And it's like, you really didn't give first of all, you went way too extreme. From here to there, and you only gave yourself limited time. It took you years to gain this weight, and you're giving yourself 2 weeks to start to see real progress. Mm-hmm. So make some small changes. Yes. Do some replacement stuff. Replace a bad carb with a good carb. Right. That's, whether it be your snack or a certain go-to meal, right? And then the next week, make one more small change, right? And then all of a sudden, a month down the road, you have like 4 changes that you've made. You're drinking more water.
You're moving.
You're moving more, right.
Yeah.
And then you've replaced 2 foods that were probably not that good for you with a healthier snack or meal
eating
option.
More regularly,
all of a sudden, it's like, 3 pounds came off.
Yes.
That's called healthy weight loss in a month.
And it's usually the weight loss that stays off.
Yes, it's not Biggest Loser weight loss, which is people are looking, well, I didn't lose 10 pounds last week. Well, you're not supposed to lose 10 pounds in a week.
That's true. I mean, I'm not
it's
saying
a show.
You can do that, but I guarantee you it's not going to stay off for the long. It's not a sustainable way to live. So it is. It's a reality check, and people got to give themselves be kind. Yeah. I always tell my clients, don't be so hard on yourself. You can't take your world and go like this and think you cannot come home and go to the pantry and the fridge and throw it all out and replace it with nothing but holistic, whole, organic.
Yeah, right.
No, leave that chocolate bar that's in there. I always would ask a client, what's one or two glaringly obvious things that just looking at this, you and I both can go, this and this right here is probably a hindrance, or probably what's kind of stonewalling things for me. And I'd say, okay, let's pick one. Let's do that for 7 days. I want you to do that for 7 days. Yeah. How did 7 days go? 7 days was great, if 7 days was challenging. If 7 days was hard, then we did it longer. But all those little steps add up to huge improvements. And a lifestyle, this is a transition. Right. Into just a better way of living, better choices, a higher quality of life, healthier living. So it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen by throwing out all the bad and putting in all the good, because it's not about bad or good necessarily. It's about those few tweaks and being consistent and just sticking with it and let the changes happen, because they will. And you'll be able to keep them.
You got to think big picture, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you're really trying to, if you're looking to lose 20 or 25 pounds, expect that to be several months.
Exactly.
That is not happening in a 30-day period unless, like I said, you're on some kind of game show and you're looking for the $1 million prize. Right. And you have 8 hours a day to exercise, and come on. Meals, people are so, I mean, that's, I'll save my soapbox speech for another time, but people are so lured into just a false approach or false goals based on some of this stuff that they see and they read. It's so out there, and it's it's all for good reason, I guess. It's a motivator for people to see someone have dramatic weight loss, but
it's more for entertainment.
It really is. I think ultimately
education. Let's talk education versus entertainment. Yeah. They definitely. I will give credit. They touch on things as far as healthy eating. Yeah. What's better to eat than this? Yes. Absolutely. But the reality of how do you actually lose? And some of these people are losing. They have massive. They're obese, morbidly obese. We're not talking about that extra 10,
and that's
15,
just it too, right? If you're morbidly obese and have 100 or 200 pounds to lose, well, 10 pounds is going to come off a lot faster
right away
than the man or woman looking to just trim down a little bit.
Exactly.
Whereas 5 pounds is a huge deal for them. Yeah. So you've already touched on bread sources a little bit. There are healthier options there, and we mentioned like sprouted breads, stuff that's got lots of nuts and seeds and real texture, a little bit more grainy, more color to it. So, but what are your thoughts when it comes to like pasta? Because there's a lot of pasta eaters in the world.
Yeah, a lot of pasta eaters, and pasta definitely gets a bad rap. And if you, I can't tell you how many, probably 90% of the moms that I would get as clients, they did not have the time or the money to be making different meals come mealtime.
Yeah.
Picky kids, usually you can take the pickiest kid out there, they will eat pasta. Whether it's got butter on it or not. A kid will eat a noodle. A kid will eat a noodle, right? If you can, and there's, I have to hand it to like the changes that are happening out there in the food industry in the world and what's available for options. But we've got whole grain pasta options. Right. Spinach. All these pastas that you can walk in the pasta aisle now, and it's not all that kind of pale yellow white. You can
Correct.
There's the darker browns. There's the greens and the reds, because they've got vegetables. In them.
So we're fooling people now, right? But it still tastes good.
You can still have your pasta, You don't need to consume 6 or 7 bowls of it.
Right.
Have some other things on the table. A really great green salad. Choose, I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with fats. If you like a creamy pasta sauce, okay, fine. Just, you don't need 14 gallons of it on your pasta.
Right.
Or if you know, if you like the tomato ones, go with something that's a tomato base. So it's, again, we don't have to cut that stuff out. We just have to make it a better choice than the one we had maybe a month ago.
Right.
Let's improve it.
Right. Just improve it.
Improve it. Make it healthier. Give it some more nutritional value.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
And right. Pair it with something else that's healthy. You know. I mean, it's add color. Color is usually more healthy.
Yeah.
More colorful
colors
food
on the
items.
plate are a really good indication that you're on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you got to chew a lot.
Yeah. Right.
Because those pastas are. I had a roommate of mine once, and I was. She wanted to do that's it. I'm throwing all the stuff out. I want to start healthy and good. And I'm like, sweetie, you're German. You grew up. You probably had beer and bread as a toddler.
Right.
Like a high
for
carb,
breakfast.
A high carb diet. So she grew up with that kind of, a very high carb diet, and she did love her pasta. And I was like, you're fooling yourself if you think you're going to be able to cut it out, because you might do it for 10 days, and then I guarantee you're going to go buy Olive Garden, pull in, and then you're going to eat them out of pasta. She had described it once to me. I went over, made her supper, and it was like a whole grain pasta, and she's like, I don't know. She described it as scratchy, but I was like, well, that's that fiber. That's that. That's what you want. So get used to it.
Yeah, that's
get
good.
Used to the scratchiness.
Get used to it. That's right.
Yeah.
If it requires an extra 10 chews, it's probably for good reason. Yeah. Is there list maybe like some negative impact from someone eating too few carbs maybe over a period of time? Like, so what can they expect?
Okay. Again, that's, it's, I'm gonna paint with a broad brush.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah.
But a lot of what I heard, a lot of what my experience was in coaching clients is that those cravings getting very intense. So to me, that's a real key indication that you're too low in your carbs, because if you're getting those cravings that it's an uncontrollable binge, like you start and can't stop.
Yeah.
We need to look at increasing some carb, giving you some good filling carbs and fats, because you're too low. So too few, lots of cravings, binging, and when your body gets to a point, I'll just call it starving for dramatic effect. Yeah. It's going to direct you to the quickest source possible. It's not going to direct you to the kitchen to cook and it's going to be, what can I have? Oh, potato chips. They're right there. Boom. Right? Because it needs that. You also, when you cut out carbs, you're cutting out a lot of fiber, right? From the good carbs, if you're choosing with good carbs, you're cutting out fiber. And people that are actually serious about fat loss, you need to have fiber. If you're not getting the fiber, it's going to impede.
We're talking about poop, everybody.
That's right. Okay? Yeah, everybody does
fiber equals going to the bathroom, but you need to be able to keep.
You got to move stuff through.
Yeah.
If it doesn't move, it's staying.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. And if we don't have that fiber, it is actually going to be a hindrance to your fat loss.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people actually will describe it feeling like having the flu, just headachy, foggy, can't think clear, just feeling meh.
Yeah. I know I've probably had it before without realizing it, because there's been moments where, I'm trying to be extra good and probably I'm carb deficient.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, carbs are definitely my friend, and everybody in the health or fitness industry I've talked with who knows a thing or two about food, they eat a fair amount of carbohydrates, and mostly it's because of their activity probably, but then they see the value in the carbs that they're eating. They understand, like you said, the sweet potatoes, the certain rices, certain pastas, and they do not hold back from eating those foods. They just moderate it. Yeah. They're very consistent with it, and they avoid the overly processed, just crappy. I call crappy carbs. Just the ones, like I said, that spike those levels and leave you like high and low in a matter of an hour. For those listening. And you touched on, obviously, with your hunger and being satisfied when you eat. we have an amazing free report called 6 Ways to Tame Your Appetite and Cravings. And I want every single listener to grab one of those free reports. You can grab one at www.criticalbench.com/cravings. Be sure to grab that free report. You can download it instantly, and there's lots of terrific information there that ties in perfectly with some of our discussion today. I want to thank everyone that's been listening, because this has been a lot of fun, and hope it was eye-opening for you on some level. I know I picked up a few new things talking with Tonya, and it's been a real pleasure having you.
It's fun to be here.
Yeah, and I hope we can do it again sometime, because it's not just nutrition that you know a lot about. There's other things there that you're an expert in. So thank you to all these terrific listeners for joining us on the Strong by Design podcast show. This is Coach Chris Wilson, and we'll look forward to giving you another show in the very near future.